Hello, everybody. Buddy with Midland, Texas. I saw something interesting on the news this morning. A Texas-based oil refinery indicted by grand jury over disturbing allegations. They must be held accountable. It's a story by MSN.com. I commented up there, according to the B, oil refinery Phillips 66 has been indicted by a Los Angeles federal grand jury for allegedly dumping hundreds of thousands of gallons of industrial wastewater in the California county sewer system. I hired on with Phillips Gas in 1983, and I had 28 years service with them when I was shot by somebody under my home with the phone lines cut and burglar alarms going off in the attic. It was then called DCP Midstream. Proof was found showing that this home invasion and premeditated capital attempted murder was covered up by certain officers with the Midland Police Department who tampered with the evidence, lied on police reports, and called me crazy. I tagged them on it so they can see it. Now there are over 60 other homeowners documented reporting people in the attic, and it looks like they've been calling all of those victims crazy. This is organized crime. I've suspected some Phillips and DCP employees were at the secret underground oil show parties held in my backyard. In fact, I had reported 5 coworkers to my supervisor, Dane Wiggins, prior to the murder attempt because I believe they knew who was breaking into my home, and now I believe the reason they knew was because of these infamous and wild parties. I pray that if those coworkers did know about the crimes at my home before I was crippled for life in the murder attempt, they've had the wisdom to report those underground homes and parties to law enforcement. They're required by law to do that. By the grace of God, I crawled out and survived the murder attempt. 6 months later, I was placed on long-term disability, and those other coworkers were laid off. It seemed like a cover-up was going on. Perhaps the Texas Rangers can use this information for their investigation into the 4 murder deaths at my home that Aaron Peckover said happened here before somebody tried to kill me. I'm gonna show you some more. Okay, how I got over to Midland. See, I was working in Hobbs, and Hobbs, New Mexico. It's about 100 miles from here. Dane, my supervisor, had come to me and asked me to look at this job in Midland that had a moving package with it, and it wasn't a promotion, so I didn't even bid on it. And he was upset and says, "Why?" And I said, "Well, it wasn't a promotion." So they took it down, they made it into a promotion, and they bid it again. So that time I talked to family, who my dad, my brother, I think that's a great idea. And I bid on it and come over here. That's how I got over here to Midland, okay? Soon as I got here, I got this award, 25 years, okay? I was a company man. I love my company and still do. I mean, I would be working for them, all the way till retirement as long as they let me work. But that didn't work out that way. Okay, here's a picture of Dane from one of our meetings, and here in November 10th, it was later the year after I'd been, survived the murder attempt and was shot. I wrote Dane and said, "Hey, Dane, do you have the documentation of me reporting to you the 5 people who I believe had knowledge of people breaking in my home? This was a few months before the murder attempt of my life. Call me when you get time. My number's this." And Dane never answered and blocked me. They then laid Dane off, and also them other 5 people. One of those 5 is no longer alive. This is one person I reported. Her name was Robin McAllister Steer. Okay, this come from her Facebook. And after I survived the murder attempt, I got to the hospital. I was looking at everybody's Facebook, and I found this on her Facebook timeline from the day of the murder attempt. This guy named Steve Parker, he writes her, says, "You need to have her delete one friend and get off of the nasty number." Well, she was our cell phone administrator, and I wondered if she wasn't, watching my phone calls, and my number was the nasty number, And then here's Steve Parker again to Robin, ordering her, "Don't get on Facebook." And that was weird. After I'd survived the murder attempt, there's this large group of people that were so-called friends that all of a sudden got off Facebook, and I had just survived a murder attempt. I think they knew. Here's another guy I reported. It's Bobby Douglas right here. And he's the one that brought me home from the hospital. Here I was on crutches. That was on February 7th and 2012. And my security cameras were still working. That was security cameras that caught the secret police. But they also laid Bobby off. I think he went to work for XTO, ExxonMobil company. Okay, this is Brent Collins, and he was he was Dane's boss. He used to be my peer. He took care of the network over in Odessa, West Texas. I took care of the network in southeast Mexico, but later he became my boss, and then my boss's boss. And I got a feeling that that Brent knows about the underground homes and parties too. I often see him on my Facebook. People, you may know this, so I think he's watching what I post online. And and I like Brent. I hope he's smart enough to know if he knows about them underground homes in my backyard and those parties, that he's smart enough to report that because of these capital crimes and murders. See, Dane told me after I survived the murder attempt, HR don't want you to come back. HR don't want me to come back. I had a return to work permit and I wasn't allowed to come back. I was put on long-term disability. Crippled for life. So, and I had a desk job as a programmer. So here's Shayna DeLay Troyer. She was one of our HR managers, okay? And she writes me on Facebook in the public, I don't appreciate my name being associated in your batshit crazy lunatic ravens. That's the lies, the life-destroying lies spread about me after I had survived a home invasion and premeditated murder attempt. And as a lot of people know, I was reporting people in my attic. Now I've got 60 other homeowners plus documented reporting people in the attic. So I guess that's 60 other batshit crazy lunatic ravens. Keep in mind, this is the HR manager for Phillips or DCP Midstream, destroying my life in the public with these life-destroying lies, and I'm a victim. There's another guy that they laid off too that was a commercial director named Ken Slager, and he lived directly across the street from my house. My house is this home, and I always thought that looked like a tunnel right there. See where, like right here, it's going over to that house. That's where Ken Slager lived. He lived in that house before I moved here. And of course, in the backyards where the underground parties were at. Well, Ken's group took care of the booth at the oil shows, okay? And so that's interesting because oil show parties were going on in the underground home in my backyard. I think Ken may know about it, and I hope he's smart enough to report, these underground homes, the parties that are connected to these many crimes and murders. I like Ken. This is just something I looked up on the Midland County Appraisal District. It's how you can look up who owns a home, who used to own a home, a deed history, and now it's a Dustin Kirkland that lives over there, nice guy. And before him was Marilyn DeLuigi. This is the home directly across the street, okay? And Marilyn's the one that told me twice Mike Lawhon died in my house when his death certificate said he died in Fort Worth. She also said somebody else died here. I think Marilyn probably knows about the underground homes, and she has information on the suspected murder of the previous owner, Mike Lawhon, okay? That's the relocation company that I used right there. And the reason it's there is because of Ken Slager that worked for my company. He was that commercial director, lived across the street, and his group took care of the booth at the oil shows and our booth at the oil shows, and in the backyard was the oil show parties. You see how that's connected? They laid him off after I survived a murder attempt. So I suspected that possibly, people in my company, Phillips, DCP, may have been influencing or even bribing public officials, elected, law enforcement for help in covering up these underground homes, the parties, and the crimes and murders connected with them. I found this on Midland Crime Stoppers, and I've sent many Midland Crime Stoppers in, and I've got copies of them and all that stuff. But I thought this was real interesting. This was in January 2023, January 26, 2023. And Officer of the Year that year, Stephen Truex. Well, he was the guy that I believe was at my house, Midland Police Department. Johnny Rodriguez. I wonder if he ain't related to Rosie Rodriguez, who tampered with evidence, lied on police reports, etc. Okay. Jeffrey Strain. He was the Texas Ranger assigned to my case. All of these were Officers of the Year by the Midland Crime Stoppers, And then it listed here the oil companies that was supporting the Midland Crime Stoppers. And you can see it. Conoco Phillips, that's my company right there, and other oil companies. I've wondered if oil companies, multi-billion-dollar oil companies, were had actually just been bribing law enforcement, elected officials to cover up the crimes and murders connected with the underground homes. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.